Hello, everybody. This is Elaine Williams with Captivate the Mic, and I have such a treat for you today. This woman is so amazing, has a PhD, and just one of the wildest backstories I've ever heard. Mickey Fitch-Collins, thank you for being here. Thank
Oh
you.
my gosh. Thank you, Elaine, so much for the invite to be here. It's going to be awesome. I've been so looking forward to the conversation today.
Yes, me too. And we met through Podmatch. And I read your bio and it was beautifully written. And I was like, wait, what? Fish competitions? Like what? So please tell us how that evolved. Tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a little bit of kind of a wacky sort of story. I mean, everybody says that about themselves. It's like, oh, let me tell you my story. But this really is kind of an odd story. So I'll take you back 30 years ago when I'm this 14-year-old teenage girl growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. And I have always been really interested in fishing, like ever since I grew up with a little pond that was behind my house. Ever since my parents could trust that I wasn't going to like fall in and drown, right? They were like, okay, go outside and fish. And I have always loved to fish. When I became a teenager, I got really into fishing and got connected with some fishing guides and kind of people in the local community. And some folks, maybe some listeners of your audience are familiar with this. Like in the winter months, there's these like sportsmen's expos and stuff that happen all over the country. Basically, a bunch of people get sad that they can't fish over the winter months because it's too cold or whatever. And they get together and they, talk about fishing and learning and all this sort of stuff. And I got into that stuff as a teenager. Now, you may also sometimes be flipping through the channels on your TV and land on ESPN or Fox Sports or something like that. You might see these Southern guys that are on lakes doing these bass fishing tournaments. It's kind of the biggest weight of 5 bass or anything like that. That's the stuff that I got into. But I am obviously not somebody who lives in the South. I'm not a guy, right? All this sort of stuff. And I got into this and I got connected with a bunch of different companies that then became my sponsors. And I became the youngest professional bass fisherman in the country at the time. I was 14. I did this until I was about 20, 21 years old. And I had a really different sort of experience because what I did on the weekends was I went out and I fished and I wrote magazine articles. I was, newspaper articles. This was pre-podcasting. So I was doing radio shows, TV shows, and giving seminars to mostly men, right? But that were 2, 3, 4 times my age about how to become a better fisherman. So a little bit different experience than the rest of my 14, 15, 16-year-old peers were having at the time.
I just love that. And please forgive my ignorance, but like I'm like, people get together and talk about fish. Like what? Can you
Yeah.
give me an example of like what the hell people talk about?
Right. I mean, think of, we all might be familiar with like a Comic-Con or something, right? Where people are getting together to talk about their favorite, Marvel comics or something like that. But yeah, it's people are coming together. There's a variety of different, folks that have products and services that they're selling, but they also get together and there's seminars on these different topics of like how to catch this type of fish in this type of environment, or here's this technique, how to use this lure or this, particular way of approaching this lake or something like that. And so that's what I mean. If it seems dorky, yes, accurate, but also, just like any other sport or activity, right? People want to come together and they want to talk about the thing that they're passionate and excited
Okay,
about.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I got into. But, I was a little bit different, right? Because I'm this like teenage girl who's like, oh, yeah, let me tell you how you're doing it wrong or how you could do it better. And that's what got me into public speaking in a way that I never got scared of public speaking because I started doing it when I was a teenager.
Well, and I'm just fascinated because I imagine that where there's some guys who were like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
is this little girl gonna teach me? So you had
Yeah.
to like break through some of that, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, the I definitely don't fit or didn't fit the mold, and that was part of the reason why I stepped away from the fishing stuff. But Yeah, I mean, there were definitely guys that were out there and gals, right, that were suspicious of, yeah, like, why should I listen to this young gal? But also, oh, okay, I listen to this and then I do some of this stuff and it turns out it works and this is cool. And you make it fun and you make it exciting and not as technical maybe as other people do. And I always have prided myself on I've never worked in sales, but yet I've always worked in sales, right? Is like the way that I help people understand something is through storytelling and examples. And it started all the way back when I was a teenager.
Wow. I just think it just cracks me up. I can just see, do you have pictures of you
Oh
speaking?
yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
I'm not gonna
just,
I'm not gonna show them to you right now, but I'll send you an email
right.
of little
Okay.
14-year-old me, 15-year-old me. Absolutely.
That is so wild. And so you're getting paid to teach guys. Were there any other women?
Yes, yeah, and again at the time, and this was, this was late 90s, early 2000s. Professional bass fishing at the time, and it still is a predominantly southern United States sort of thing, right? So there very much is kind of a good old boys club. There's a good old girls club too, but I didn't fit into either one of those sort of spaces. But what I was trying to do a lot of was to appeal to other women and girls, and especially young girls, getting people into the sport because people have this idea that like, well, only boys, fish and hunt and it's like, well, no, like all sorts of people enjoy fishing. In fact, many of us, regardless of gender, at some point we were probably fishing when we were kids and maybe we still are as adults. And so that was part of what I was trying to do too, was to get people kind of interested in the sport of like, this is another way to be outside as well.
Yes, and to bond. And although I always got in trouble, stop talking, Elaine, because you're
Yeah.
scaring away the fish. Okay, and then when we were speaking earlier, you talked about how there was like pre-fishing for tournaments or something, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so this is for the tournaments for the most of my time that I was doing the professional fishing stuff, I was under 18 and so I wasn't legally able to compete in the tournaments. But there were other folks, the other guys that were on these pro staffs with these different companies, whether it was, my boat sponsorship or lures, rods and reels, whatever it was. And so I got to go to some of these places, and there's a period of time that they kind of close the lake to competition, usually about a week in advance of the tournament. You can't go to the lake, you can't fish because part of the competition is are you able to locate the fish and able to catch them with specific techniques and stuff like this. This is not like bobber and worm fishing, by the way. This is all lure fishing. And
Okay,
so
wait,
I
wait,
would
wait,
get
wait. What can you explain the difference for those of us who don't know what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So what many of us probably have done, especially as little kids, was we would have earthworms or maybe a minnow or something underneath a bobber, and you're kind of watching that bobber on the top of the surface, and you're catching, bluegills or something like that. Professional bass fishing, what it is no live bait at all. It's all lures that are designed to mimic bait fish, crayfish, lizards, other creatures, things that bass would eat in the water, but it's all artificial stuff. It's all made of plastics and poly materials and stuff like that. And so part of the skill or the skill and the science and the finesse of professional fishing is essentially how good are you at not only finding where in the lake they are, but tricking fish into biting something that isn't a live minnow or a worm or something like that, and like essentially kind of convincing them. It's hunting underwater, right? To be able to kind of be in the right spot at the right time to be able to get the fish to bite your line, right? And so there's a lot of skill, there's a lot of science to it, despite people kind of thinking, oh, good old boys drowning worms under bobbers. But I got to go and I would be helping some of the other pros that were going to compete, doing some of this pre-fishing, and so kind of being around in different places and kind of figuring out like, well, where are the fish on this river or this lake or something like that. And it was incredible because I was this teenager who was now on the professional staff with these people that I would see in magazines and on TV shows, and now they're my peers, right? So it was really, really cool for me.
That is wild. Okay. Okay, now I know the difference between lure and live bait.
You got it. You got
Okay.
it.
Okay, so then what happened after you stopped competing?
Yeah, yeah. So, all of this, I'm a teenager and I'm in high school and early college. And when I was in high school, my high school was cool with me kind of, doing some of these things and traveling and whatnot. But when I got to college, university professors, they expect you to be there. They expect you to be engaged and be in the university environment. And the two things just didn't mix for me. And so I said, well, I need to give up the fishing stuff and get my formalized education. And so I let go of the professional fishing. I still to this day continue to fish a whole bunch, but I always tell people I kind of colored outside the line, so to speak, in college. I was the person that kind of, pushed some of the rules and the boundaries, got into a little bit of trouble in college. But what I was doing was leadership of my peers, we could say. I had a great experience. I loved being in the university environment, but I got into student leadership. And again, the through line of this kind of teaching and learning and helping other people, my one of the greatest points in my life was my second week of being in a student leadership role was 9/11. And so I went through this process of becoming a student leader and thinking, okay, my job is to, root beer float parties and help people have fun in college and all of this sort of stuff. And then it turned out what it was helping my peers go through, as everybody else was, this national crisis. And I'm in terms of age and such, I say all the time is I think my age grouping of people, we were kind of the last grouping of folks that did the Army ROTC thing as a way to pay for college, but folks never thought that they were going to be actually going in and serving or anything like that. And I saw a bunch of my peers immediately get called up and the after effects of 9/11 and stuff. And so that became a huge part of what does it mean to be leading other people and to be existing in community. And again, those skills of public speaking and gathering and teaching and learning, that through line kind of continued. And as I jokingly tell people, I went to college and I never left because I ended up working in higher education administration for the next 20 years. That was my career. That's what I got my master's degree in, my PhD. So yeah, it was a journey.
Nice. I love it. And you started when you were 14. Like it all
Yeah.
started with the fish.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely did. And the next point in my journey for me was, kind of in my late 30s. I was at the kind of top level position at a university and had just earned my PhD, got married, was about to turn 40. COVID happens. We have our first child. And like a lot of people, I have this moment where I'm like, what am I doing? Is this what I want to be doing? And what I realized was I was spending a lot more time, I call it a discernment process. I was spending a lot more time fighting for resources with my peers than I was doing anything to help students actually graduate and be successful in university environments. And so I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And so when I went through this discernment process of figuring out like, what is it that I actually really want to do? And the through line, again, back all the way to when I was a teenager, helping people learn, teaching people, helping people exist in community, develop themselves, right? And so I thought, oh, learning and development, that's what I want to do. I want to help other people get better at their jobs. And so that's what I do now is I work for an organization called Learn It, and we're a live learning platform. I'm a human skills facilitator. And so what I tell people that I do every day is I help other people get better. My job is to help other people get better at their jobs. And I make strangers into friends in 2-hour workshops, live virtual workshops. I do in-person stuff on a whole variety of different, human skills. And again, I call back to those skills that I developed in public speaking 30 years ago when I was a teenager.
Wow, that's amazing. And now a quick message. Are you a female business owner or a female in corporate and it's time to work on your speaking? It's time to work on your executive presence. It's time. You are meant for more. My name's Elaine, and I've helped hundreds of people just like you get more comfortable, more confident, and become a truly charismatic speaker. So that whenever you stand up to speak, whether it's in front of 5 people or 5,000, people lean in anticipation. When you are a charismatic speaker, you have an unfair advantage, and people can't even put their fingers on it. So if this resonates with you, if you're ready for more, you know you're meant for more, click the button below. Let's schedule a call. I'd love to chat with you and find out what you're up to, what you're committed to, what you're excited about, and see if there's a way we could possibly partner or work together. And now back to the show. So if you had, do you have like a super tip that you could give people if they wanted to work on their speaking? Maybe, somebody's listening and maybe they've done it a couple times and it was rough, or maybe they've been wanting to do it. What wisdom
Yeah.
could you impart?
Yeah, I mean, I think about even the title of your podcast, I think really speaks to it. But there's a couple of things that I would offer two concrete tips that I would offer to folks, and one mental tip. The mental tip is to own your stories and own your narratives. Each one of us is coming to whatever speaking engagement, whether it's two people in front of us or 2,000 people in front of us. We have stories and we have experiences, and humans, we make meaning in story. That's how we feel connected to other people. That's how we feel endeared to other people. That's what makes us not like other people, is stories. And so to figure out what are your stories, and what are the ways in which you can figure out how to tell those stories in a way that is meaningful to other people. So that's kind of the mindset piece. But the two concrete tips that I would offer to folks, Elaine, is this. Number one is to record yourself speaking. Video recordings and audio recordings, and
Which can be so
absolute
hard. Oh my God.
so hard, so hard. But record yourself and watch it back in a couple of different ways, okay? What I do, and again, this is painful, but I do this every single week. I watch the recording as it is, one time speed, audio and visual. I also will turn the audio off and I turn it up to 1.5 or 1.75 or even 2 times, because what I want to do is I want to see, where are my hands going? What am I looking at? What are the weird things? What's going on non-verbally for me? Right. And sometimes what I will do is I will turn the video off and I only listen to my voice to kind of think about, how am I using my voice as an instrument of storytelling and teaching? The other kind of the second tip that I would offer to folks is the tip that I think everybody's really leaning into over the last 3 years, is use AI as a presentation coach, right? So have it listen to you give speeches and give presentations, upload
Oh my
those
gosh,
recordings.
that's brilliant.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have a custom GPT that I created for myself in ChatGPT, and it's ruthless. I mean, this GPT is ruthless. Of Mickey, you keep saying this word, or your filler words, or, you're talking too fast, you slow down too much, you're telling the same story, or whatever that might be. And use AI to serve. I mean, all of us wish and hope that we had that coach that we could come upon at any particular time to help us become better speakers. Guess what? You do now, and it's called AI.
That's amazing. Yeah, I must admit, I've been performing my whole life, but there were a couple of lectures that I saw that I was mortified. I sounded like such a valley girl. I was like, Elaine. I
Yeah.
was fangirling, like, oh God.
Well, and there's so much. I always tell people, like, there's art, there's skill, there's science. You know this, right? I mean, it's how we use our voice as an instrument, how we use our body as an instrument, how we use eye contact. The words are just one part of it. If you have a
Right,
slide deck or a visual, that's just
right,
one part of it. But what
right.
really brings people into you is how you use your physical presence, whether it's virtual or in person. That's how people feel connected to you. Like, that's what makes things memorable.
Yeah, I love that. I did an interview earlier and I was talking about coming from your heart and from the inside out, and how when you're really connected with your why, it's so much bigger than, oh, there's another new wrinkle. Oh my God, it's more silver hair. There's always a good
Yeah,
reason to not press go.
right.
So, well, that's cool. So so you're building Learn It, and then do you still do you do any speaking for fun or?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm part of the team at Learn It, and yeah, I mean that's my primary job. My primary gig is doing everything that we can do to kind of get ourselves out there to folks. And but yeah, I definitely do stuff on the side of, I have opportunities to do some coaching with some folks. I love, that's kind of a new venture for me, is stepping into kind of being a coaching capacity for people. One of the things that I love that I'm able to do. My PhD is in leadership in higher education, but like leadership broadly. And I did my dissertation research was on essentially the experience of middle managers in organizations and essentially kind of how isolated folks feel and that push pull that middle managers experience. And so what I found is people really want to talk about that. They really want skill sets to kind of offset burnout and prevent burnout. And so I'm finding I'm being called upon a lot to do some coaching with folks, to do some presentations, to talk about the thing that nobody wants to talk about, which is burnout, right? It's like that word nobody wants to mention. So um, yeah, and I find myself in random situations in my community. I have two young kids, and so there's always opportunities that I'm like, oh well. Even just the other day, I was talking with one of our friends that owns a coffee shop here in our small community in northern Wisconsin, and I was like, well, I could be like the bingo caller because like I have this, I just have this kind of stage personality. I could do that, or I could, help out with this thing for this auction that you have, or whatever. Because a lot of people are very, very fearful to get up on a stage or to get in front of a microphone, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
literally every day 4, 6, or all 8 hours of my workday are with a microphone and a camera in front of me. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, this
I
is,
love it. And I don't know, I believe that everybody has the potential to be charismatic and confident. I think some people have, sort of some people are really born with it, and then some of us get to cultivate it. But to me, a charismatic speaker is somebody who's really comfortable in their own skin so that their true like essence and heart and soul can come out instead of trying to navigate the nerves or what, like
yeah,
that's my take is like, I love to watch like old MLK or JFK, we go to the moon not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Like
yeah,
there's just some of these
yeah.
iconic things. He was so
I mean,
charismatic.
authenticity, authenticity in a speaker is, I think, way more important than what the actual message itself is. Obviously, the messages are important, but you have to feel when I watch, and obviously I'm a little bit critical, right? Because like this is part of my job is to essentially be a professional public speaker. But when I watch people YouTube videos or in person when I'm at conferences, you know I want to feel, we all should want to feel that that person in front of us is the genuine version of themselves, not a paid actor, not somebody who's trying on a facade, kind of putting on a skin of someone or something else to be in that moment. I mean, yes, is it a performance? Yes, is there a performative element to speaking and engaging other people? For sure. But what helps us, I shouldn't say what makes us, what helps us move other people to action or to rally people around an idea or to even just get a laugh about a story is people need to feel like they're getting the real version of you that
Yeah.
nerves and all. I mean, I was doing an in-person thing a couple of weeks ago and I just had surgery on my foot, and so I had I was in crutches and this walking boot, and I kind of like tripped over and like knocked the laptop a little bit and stuff, and it's like, yeah, it's all part of the game, right? Like
Right.
I'm a real human being, and also, whoops, like that happened.
I love that. See, it's so val. I mean, that's what I teach and preach. Like, and when I very first started Captivate the Crowd, I've been coaching and speaking forever. And I got certified with Debbie Ford and I did landmark leadership. And I was trying to be very polished and professional because I
Mm.
thought that's what people would want. And I realized, like, Elaine, that is so not authentic. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I got to read the room. There's a lot of factors, but I'm an effusive, bubbly personality, and I speak from my heart. And me trying to be polished it just felt so incongruent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you and I need to get on to a stage together, and
Oh
that'll
my
probably
gosh.
overwhelm the room a little bit. But I agree with you. I mean, I think about, and again, everybody has to be the version of themselves that is themselves, right? But I think about, I can't stand behind a lectern
Oh my
and
God.
talk to a group, you know.
I mean, first of all, I'm 5'2". Like I disappear. I'm like, hello, everybody. Like I'm always like,
I'm on the
no
other side. I'm
extras.
5'11", so yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
just,
I
yeah,
love it.
you know, everybody, I think you're absolutely right, though. I mean, people, and that's part of the process of, you know, everybody has like whatever your message or your topic is, like that's one piece, but you have to figure out like, who am I as a speaker? Who am I as a teacher or as a facilitator? And I mean, I agree with you. As earlier on in my career, I mean, even just when I was in college, I mean, even at my college age, I had significantly more speaking experience than anybody. I mean, you know, that than anybody had as a 20 something. But I knew at that point, I'm like, I'm not the speak behind the lectern person. You know, I need to have the wireless lavalier microphone that I can clip to me because I need these hands to be able to
Right.
present and I
I
need
need
to
to
be able to
be,
move
yeah.
around. You know, I need to be able to jump up on a chair to make a point to people and you know, shout and all this sort of stuff because that's who I am and because it serves my message, right? But, you know, if somebody said, okay, Mickey, sit behind this table and you know, grab a hold of this lectern or something, that'd be very challenging for me. Like I think I'm like, you know, one of those bucket list things for me is, gosh, like wouldn't it be amazing if someday some university said, Mickey, we want you to be our commencement speaker. But I sure hope that they're not expecting me to stand behind a lectern to do that. I'm going to need that wireless microphone to be able to move
Well,
around that
did you
stage.
did you see Steve Carell? He
Right.
did
Yes.
he did a lecture and then he did a dance in the middle. And I was like, that is perfect.
Yeah.
I loved
Yeah.
it so much.
Authentically him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always talking about pattern interrupt. How can you stop the scroll? How can you, you know, make it different and unique? And okay, my question is, if people want to know how to work with you or how to get a hold of you now,
Hmm.
what is the best way?
Yeah, come visit me in northern Wisconsin first and foremost. Now, the best way to get a hold of me is a couple of different ways. Number one, LinkedIn is a fantastic place to get in touch. That is, I think, you know, we could go on and on and on about the effectiveness of LinkedIn, but just a fantastic community. People are so generous with their time. In fact, just earlier today, I was meeting with somebody that you introduced me to. And so, I
Oh,
mean, people are so generous with their time.
oh,
So,
that makes me so
LinkedIn.
happy. I love that.
Yes, yes, yeah. Please find me on LinkedIn, Mickey Fitch-Collins. Go ahead and find me out there. The other thing that I would say too is I want to expose people to what we do at Learnit. And so if you go to Learnit, learnit.com/Mickey, you're going to find a couple of different things there. One of the things that I do outside of that human skills facilitation is I also host a podcast called the Learnit Lounge. So you're going to find that podcast. That is for learning and development folks and organizational development and human resource folks. We also have, for anybody that's out there listening and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool and I want to learn more about Learn It, we have a 45-day free trial for up to 20 people on a team to be able to check out our workshops. Absolutely free to check that out. You can find that
Wow.
link there. That is a huge value. But then you can get an idea of kind of what myself and my colleagues do and what we're trying to achieve at Learn It by checking that out. Yeah, I'd love to be in touch with people. I am of I said this to your colleague Becky that I was meeting with earlier today. I said,
Oh,
you know,
cool.
I just am all about making sure that you never know who's going to be the next person that you do a project with. You're going to be working for this person. You're going to be in this person's solar system. You're going to collaborate on a project. And so I always tell people, please get in touch with me. Let's bring each other into each other's networks.
I love that. I mean, I just love connecting, and that makes me so happy that you met Becky. And it's so, I'll just share with you. So I went to Phoenix and I went with a client. We were going to shoot content, and she has been a friend and a champion of my work for years. And then there was another person flying in from LA named Ann Bennett. And I've heard of this woman for years. I had met her a couple times, but it was always sort of like ships in the night, you know. We were
Yeah,
at conferences and we'd be like, hey, and we knew a lot of the same people. So Anne flies in on Thursday. I fly in on Thursday. So, and she was speaking at this event. So we go, and of course, anytime I'm at an event, I'm always like taking video for my friends. Like, you always
sure.
need You always
Yeah, you
need,
need speak a reel.
visual pictures and reels and anyway, it was so great to see Karen, and it was such a blast to finally hang out with Anne because we were like, and we had like all these theatrical jokes and insider things, and then I'm like, I miss you too, and you just never know when you're gonna find your next business bestie,
That's right.
and and to learn from and to be authentic and share like business this year, woo! It's been a wild one. And I think it's going to continue,
Mhm.
and just knowing that you're not alone in your experience. I mean, I always feel like, isn't that why we're on the planet? To help each other, to
Yeah.
learn and grow and evolve, and to help you reach your full potential and help me reach mine, which in turn is going to have a ripple effect. I mean, isn't that why we're here on Earth,
Yeah. Well, and what I find too as I'm hosting my podcast, but also being a podcast guest is that is like the one of the most fantastic platforms to be meeting people and exchanging ideas and growing and learning. Books are fantastic, but they also take years, right, to develop and get into people's hands. And there's a privilege to that, right? Podcasts and these conversations, right? I mean, I all the time listen to a podcast and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to connect with that person on LinkedIn and I'm going to send them a message. And 99% of the time, those people get back in touch and it's like, hey, cool. I just wanted to let you know I loved your message. I loved your energy. I love your book. I love this, whatever it is. And I just want to share that positive feedback. Like that sort of stuff. I mean, you're absolutely right about you never know who we're going to be doing what with, and why not spread that positive energy and that love and that admiration and that positive feedback to one another? Because there's a lot of opportunities where we could stay silent, and let's not do that, right?
I love that. And one of the things that drives me is helping people find their voice and find their story and own their power and acknowledge and appreciate. I think it is a deep human need, and I think we all need it, even strong, independent people who think I'm good. I need it, I crave it. And so many times people only get the negative stuff. And so, I'm the kind of person, I go to restaurants and I will be like, who's the manager? This person's amazing. I remember I was at Macy's and I could tell this lady was like waiting to get screamed at because and I was like, I just want you to know this salesperson has been extraordinary. And they were like, thank you. Like they were
Yeah,
so not used to receiving it. But that's one of the things I preach and teach and talk about because we all need it, and
yeah.
for years I worked in this really crazy New York City steakhouse. We were the highest grossing restaurant in the country. And then when Tavern on the Green closed, we took over as number one. So the volume was insane. But every night I would clap for the cooks because without them, I was nothing. You can only
Right.
tell so many jokes if the steaks are going to be bad, or.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just love that acknowledge and
I
appreciation. It's
Well, and
so
I mean, earlier today, I just facilitated a workshop on giving and receiving feedback from managers. And I said, I firmly, firmly believe we do not spend nearly the amount of time giving and receiving feedback, positive or critical, but especially positive, right? There's just this idea that no news is good news. And I'm sorry, but that just doesn't work for people anymore, right? Because what we do is we become defensive. We don't know how to receive feedback because we're so not used to receiving it that we automatically assume it's going to be negative, right?
mm,
And right after I got done facilitating that workshop, I sent an email over to the librarian at my daughter's elementary school to just say, hey, you know what? Like, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all that you're doing. My daughter loves going to the library. She loves checking out books. Like, you're cultivating this learning, all this stuff. And I got like 5 minutes later, got an email back of appreciation for that appreciation. I'm like, yeah, like that's just the energy that we need to be sending into the world is people need to know, like, thank you for showing up in the way that you're showing up. And thank you for helping me. And I recognize and I see and I value the work that you do. And I think about that having been somebody who worked in it, higher education for 20 years, but now being a parent of a daycare age and an elementary school age is like these primary school teachers absolutely need our support. They are the cornerstone of our communities, right?
I love that so much. And yeah, I also, I'll write notes and I'll say, thank you for all the things that you do every day that nobody else sees.
Mm,
Because yeah, we have so many. I love it. Oh my gosh. We have to do something together. We have to collab
we
somehow.
absolutely do.
So fun. Bing, 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 bing. Oh my gosh. So, okay, one final question. You're you're 14. All of a sudden, you're like kicking butt with the fish, and they say, "Hey, hey, you gotta come teach these guys." Were you scared? Were you just like, I'm oblivious and okay? Like, what was that like when you first started the speaking?
Yeah, I mean, what we really should do is probably interview my parents on this one because maybe
Right.
they have a different perspective. But I remember thinking about, and I can distinctly remember one of my very first speaking experiences. I mean, there was several hundred people in the room, and it was kind of a stadium style auditorium, kind of a half moon sort of thing. And this again, late 90s. So I have literally have a deck. I shouldn't even say a deck, a carousel, right? Slide carousels. Remember those click, click,
Oh
click,
my
right?
gosh. We
I
have a bunch
invoked
from my
that fear
dad.
on this video, right? And it was such a fantastic project for me because I was like, I get to stage these photos, and then I'm arranging all of the little slides in the carousel, and I had the microphone, and I had rehearsed. I sure I was nervous, absolutely. Um, but that nervousness, when you're confident and competent in your message, right? To me, that's the
Right.
left hand, right hand. When you're competent about what you're going to be talking about and you're
Yep.
confident, the world is your oyster, right? Then at that point, it's just about how you project and how you tell stories and how you're tying the message together. So, was I nervous? Absolutely, right? But was that probably, I mean, I can, again, I can think about that. That was 30 years ago. I can think about those moments and say, if it weren't for those early stage moments where I was in front of 200 people, 500 people, whatever that was, I wouldn't be able to do any of the things that I do today. Do I still get nervous? Absolutely. Do I sweat a little
Sure.
bit when I'm in front of a crowd? Of course. You should. If that ever
Right.
goes
Because you
away, I'm
care.
done. Right?
Yeah.
But I just, I don't know if it was a little bit of crazy or if it was the adrenaline or if it was just me being a teenager and being like, I got this, right?
Right.
Teenagers have that weird confidence about them, but it made me nervous, but it wasn't a nervousness that shut me down, right? It was a
Right.
nervousness and adrenaline that got me
Excitement.
going. Yeah.
I love that. One of my clients sent me a referral and I was calling her to thank her. And she said, Elaine, I did like my hardest crowd. And I said, yes. And she went on, it was like morning, people were asleep, they were groggy, people weren't participating, and she'd been doing it for like her communities. And I was like, girl, you built that muscle and nobody can take that from you. Like you plowed through. You kept going, even though you're like, is anybody with me? And then she later got feedback of like, that was really great. We were all
Yeah.
just sleepy or whatever. And I said, but once you get through those kinds of things, that's what makes you bulletproof. And nobody can take that experience away from you. That's why stage time, stage time, stage time. Like,
Absolutely.
the best thing you can do is keep doing it. And I wrote when I was touring, I would write in my journal, like, okay, first three jokes kicked ass. I need to work on this fifth one. Or, great set overall, but ooh, crowd work. Got to work on that. I always
Yep.
try to write positive stuff and then like, okay, this has got to tweak. And it was just so helpful to process and for part of my evolution.
Yeah, I use Microsoft OneNote. I'm a big digital person, but I keep notes on every single speaking thing, And again, I mean, I do 2 or 3 workshops almost every single day. I do these, in-person events. I do stuff on, outside of the work that I do at Learn It. And yeah, and I always keep notes on that stuff because it's very easy for us to lose sight of some of the positive stuff because again, we have this kind of natural negativity bias. And it's also really good, like right after you do it, to capture exactly as you said, like this story really landed. People were looking at me funny with this one. This type of audience doesn't necessarily get that joke, right?
Right.
People, whatever that is, because those are the things. And again, this is why using like, recordings and using something like ChatGPT as like a speaking coach to you too, not to negate, coaches themselves, right? But this is why it's so helpful because otherwise we just kind of say, it went okay. It was all right.
Right. And
Or
and
it was
and
fantastic. And you don't forget about those other things.
one and I've heard somebody say this, and I believe it to be true of like it's never quite as good as you think it went, but it's never quite as bad. Like I was taught early on, record every set that you do as a comedian, which is painful to listen, But many times I thought, oh, I just bombed. And then I would go back and listen, and I was like, oh, I got laughs.
Yeah.
It wasn't maybe uproarious, but it wasn't as bad as I had remembered how it felt. And there were other times where I was like, oh, I crushed it. And then you listen and you're like, maybe you didn't crush it, Elaine. Like you did okay. But it was so I think that's so invaluable too of like because our experiences can be it's our perception. You never know about the sound. Like there's a million factors. It's a million
Right.
factors.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been so much fun, Mickey. I'm just fascinated. I cannot wait to tell my brother-in-law all about this episode because he loves bass fishing.
I
And,
love it.
and I mean, we have a lot of lakes in Texas, and
Indeed, you do.
I love it that you were just out there doing your thing, and that's amazing. And I definitely want to learn more about Learn It because that sounds super cool. So I'm going to put all of her details in the show notes, everybody, if you want to. And I'm going to ask her to give me one of her. I want a picture of you fishing, and I want a picture of you talking to a bunch of older men when you're 14. I don't know why that just cracks me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mickey, for coming. We really
Absolutely. Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank
Okay.
you. I
Thanks,
appreciate being here.
everybody. Thank you.